Some stories should never be told, but you're about to hear them anyway. Enter Fatal Frames. Disclaimer: the following video contains descriptions of violence and discusses sensitive topics, including mental illness. Viewer discretion is advised. This content is intended for mature audiences. They didn't think they were committing a crime. They thought they were passing a test. On May 31st, 2014, three 12-year-old girls walked into a wooded park in Wisconsin. Two of them were about to stab the third 19 times. And their reason would chill investigators to the bone. They did it to prove Slenderman was real. The night before started like any other sleepover. Morgan Geyser invited two friends to her home for her birthday weekend, Anissa Wire and Peyton Leitner. All three were 12, all 6th graders at Horning Middle School. They painted nails, they ate junk food, they laughed. But Morgan and Anissa had a secret. For months, they had been obsessed with Slenderman, a fictional internet character from a website called Creepypasta, a tall, faceless figure in a black suit who lurked in the forests and stalked children. Except Morgan and Anissa didn't think he was fictional. They believed he was real. They believed he was watching, and they believed that to become his servants, his proxies, they would have to prove their loyalty. They would have to execute an unaliving, and they had already chosen their sacrifice, their friend, Peyton. The next morning, the three girls walked to David's Park, a wooded area near Morgan's home. Morgan and Anissa suggested that they play hide and seek. What happened next took less than 2 minutes. Deep in a secluded area, they convinced Peyton to lie down on the ground. Then Morgan pulled out a 5-inch kitchen knife she'd hidden in her jacket, and she stabbed her friend 19 times. The knife pierced Peyton's arms, legs, and torso. It cut through her diaphragm, into her liver and stomach. One wound came within 1 millimeter of a major artery. 1 millimeter, the width of a human hair. Morgan and Anissa left her there in the woods, bleeding and barely conscious. They believed their mission was complete. They began walking north towards a forest hundreds of miles away, where they believed Slenderman's mansion awaited them. Peyton Leitner was 12 years old, bleeding from 19 stab wounds, and completely alone. But she refused to die. Using strength that doctors would later call miraculous, she crawled. She dragged herself nearly 100 yards through the underbrush towards a road she couldn't even see. A passing cyclist found her lying in the grass, covered in blood. He called 911. Surgeons operated for 6 hours. Dr. John Kellman, who performed the surgery, later said, "If the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived." Meanwhile, Morgan and Anissa had stopped at a Walmart to wash Peyton's blood from their hands. Hours later, police found them sitting calmly in the grass near Interstate 94, still planning to walk to Slenderman's mansion. When asked why they attacked their friend, their answer was chilling.
I tackled her and I stabbed her.
They said they did it to prove Slenderman was real. They said they feared he would unalive their families if they didn't. To understand how two 12-year-olds could attempt the unthinkable, investigators looked deeper. Morgan Geyser came from what looked like a normal family, but there was a hidden history. Her father had schizophrenia. What no one knew, what even her parents didn't realize, was that Morgan had inherited the same illness. From the age of 3, she experienced hallucinations. Imaginary figures she called Maggie and Sev. A recurring shadow, she called it. But she was never diagnosed, never treated. In October 2014, psychiatrists finally identified it. Early onset childhood schizophrenia. Her obsession with Slenderman wasn't just teenage fascination. To Morgan's fractured mind, he was as real as anything else she saw. Anissa didn't have schizophrenia, but she shared Morgan's belief. Psychologists called it a shared delusion. Two minds feeding each other's darkest thoughts until fiction became certainty. Together, they planned the unthinkable to prove their devotion to something that never existed. Wisconsin law allowed Morgan and Anissa to be tried as adults, despite being only 12. The case raised impossible questions about mental illness, juvenile justice, and the internet's effect on young minds. In 2017, both girls went to trial. Anissa Weier pleaded guilty and was found not guilty by reason of mental disease. She was sentenced to 25 years in a psychiatric institution. Morgan Geyser also pleaded guilty. Same verdict, but she received the maximum 40 years. For the next 7 years, both would finally receive a psychiatric treatment they never had before. But the story doesn't end there. Peyton Leitner survived. She graduated high school with honors. She went to college. And she chose to pursue a career in medicine, inspired by the doctors who saved her life. In a 2019 interview, Peyton was asked what she would say if she ever saw Morgan again. Her answer surprised everyone. She said she would thank her, because without that day in the woods, she wouldn't have become who she is. Anissa Weier was released in 2021. She now lives with her father under court supervision until 2037. Morgan's path was more turbulent. After 7 years of treatment, her schizophrenia was finally under control. In 2025, a judge granted her conditional release to a group home in Madison. But on November 22nd, 2025, Morgan cut off her GPS ankle monitor and disappeared. She had met a man through a church program, 43-year-old Chad Mecca. Together, they fled Wisconsin. The next day, police found them 175 miles away in Posen, Illinois, sleeping behind a truck stop. When officers asked Morgan for her name, she reportedly said, "Just Google me." Morgan Geyser is now back in custody at Winnebago Mental Health Institute. Her conditional release has been revoked. A hearing is scheduled for February 2026 to determine her future. 3 staff members have been placed on leave for their delayed response to her escape. There was never a Slenderman in the woods, or was there? Being inside the mind of someone who believes something is so real that they can touch it is something we all may never experience. No faceless figure. No supernatural force whispering commands. What we know for sure is something far more real and far more terrifying. A fictional character created for a Photoshop contest on an internet forum has become so real in 2 young minds that they were willing to sacrifice for him. Morgan and Anissa did what they did to prove Slenderman was real. But the only real thing in this story was the cost. A girl who nearly died, 2 girls who lost their childhoods, and 3 families who will never be the same. If you want to see more stories that should never be told, please comment, like, and subscribe. Show the algorithm some love. We love you all, so please remember, be safe out there. Don't become a fatal frame.